Hi everybody, and thanks for taking the time to watch this presentation. Today I'd like to talk about the Fanvil Hotspot feature. The Fanvil Hotspot feature is quite a simple yet practical function that the Fanvil range of phones offer you. In a nutshell, the simple explanation for the hotspot is that we can take a master phone and register it to a SIP registration, and that could be either a cloud registration, it could be a cloud extension, could be a cloud trunk, it could be an on-site IPBX, but it's a phone that is registered to a SIP registration, and then the other X and H and I series devices can actually register to that master phone using a single SIP registration, e.g. if I've got extension 201 and I registered a master phone to extension 201, I can then register another extension to the actual 201 master phone, and it will behave like extension 201, e.g. it will ring on incoming calls and make outgoing calls using that SIP registration. And we can put 1, 2, 3, 6, etc. phones on it. We'll go through the details of how many phones you can put on it. So it's actually quite a neat little feature, and there's a lot of applications that we're going to run through on how this can enhance your sales and enhance the solutions that you're offering to your end customers. So if I was just quickly read through the most simple explanation about the hotspot, is the Fanvil hotspot allows the Fanvil X series and H series phones to act as a master phone that will share the master phone SIP registration account. The client phones and devices register to the actual master phone, e.g. again you're only using one registration for the master phone, and then you can have a number of phones registering to the master phone at the same extension. This is a scenario, hotels, motels or rooms where you want multiple phones, but we'll go through an area through that again. So let's first of all just run through a few of the mechanics of what we can use this for. It's a Fanvil feature. It is not dependent on the IPBX or cloud environment. It's simply using a SIP registration, so it can work with any SIP server, shall we say. So the phones that we can use as a master and a client. The master is the phone that the client registers to. And the clients are the phones that connect to the master. So basically all X series phones, that's from the X1, X3, X4, X5S, X6, X7, etc., through the whole range. If it's an X series phone, it can be a master and a client phone. All the H series phones, these are the hospitality phones. That includes the H2, the H3 and the H5. Okay, so they are for the hospitality. They can also act as a master and or a client phone. The models that with a hotspot client only, these are all the I series devices. These are all your door phones, your door security phones, etc. Your the I10, the I18, I12, I23S, I31S, etc., all through the range, so the whole I series. The IW30 paging speaker and ring alerter can also be used as a client, as well as the PA2 paging and voice over IP phone module adapter. Actually, watch more, look out for the next presentation we're doing, which is on the PA2, just to show you how to use that a lot better. The only models of the current Fanvil phones that you can't use hotspot on are the C400 and the C600. Okay, so what can we do? Now, the hotspot has been around for a little while, but the Fanvil engineers have just done some development. Their marketing team done some development on this, got some feedback of what people wanted, and basically threw a bunch of steroids together at the phones, and this is what we've come up with. It looks like overkill, but basically, hey, better too much than too little at times, right? So if we go through the various X model phones here, The X7, we can have 100 clients. That means we can have a X7 as a master phone, and we can have 100 clients connecting to that X7 single SIP registration. That basically means if 100 of those clients can pick up and make an outgoing call and use and basically present itself as the SIP registration, and if incoming calls ring, you get 100 phones ringing. That's going to get noisy. Again, I can't think of any applications where I'd use 100 phones at this particular point in time, but you've got clients to burn. So basically 100 clients is the X7, the X7C, the I210, the X6, X6U, X5S, X5U, X4, X3G, X4U, X3S, X1, etc. So everything's behind 100 clients except for the current model X4, the X3S, and the X1. Okay, so they're basically the client numbers you can put on each phone. So what function does it support? The master phone, basically the phone that you're using as your master phone is just like a SIP voice over IP phone. It doesn't lose any of its functionality as a Fanvil phone. It's got all the functionality, BLFs, etc., on the phone. The client's phones that are going to be registering to it do have some limitations. So, but let's go through fundamentally what they will do. They will ring on incoming calls. Okay, and you can, if you've got multiple line registrations on your phone, for example, the X3 has got, the X3S has got 2-line registration on it. You can actually have a SIP registration on line 1, and that will make your clients ring, but on your SIP registration line 2 might be a different SIP registration, and you've got an option to turn that off, so that will only ring your phone, the other line will ring the other client phones. Okay, so incoming calls, they're basically all the clients ring. It will present all the incoming call ID and details, as you would expect. You can dial external numbers, either internal calls or external numbers. The internal clients and incoming calls will present on incoming calls will present all the calling information. On outgoing calls, it'll present all your SIP ID and registration details as per a standard SIP phone. You can hold calls. You can actually transfer calls within extensions of the hot group. So how that works is that when you set up your client and your clients and your master phone together, as you register them, they will take on personas. So it'll be like if I've got extension 201 as the master, the master phone will be 200_0, meaning that and the second client, or the first client, will be 201_1. The next one will be 201_2. So if I pick up any of the phones and want to ring another phone within the hotspot group, I can pick it up and say from _2, and say I want to dial the extension _3. I just press single digit 3 and it rings that extension. If I want to dial the master phone, which is _0, dial 0, goes to the phone. If I want to ring another extension in the group, e.g. a separate SIP registration, I just dial the 3-digit extension number and the phone will dial it. If I want to dial an outside line, dial my outside line code, and away I go. So you can dial in between the extensions, and you can actually hold calls on the phones and pick them up from other phones. You can transfer calls within the hotspot, master to client. You can transfer calls to other SIP extensions on the IPPBX and ITSP provider. You're able to park calls and pick up calls off the various phones within the group. Okay. So how do we use this? It's a great feature. It has been around, but we're now really doing a push and release on it because it works. It works exceedingly well. It opens up some interesting offerings for you, and it actually creates a few uniques that you're going to have over other brands. There are a number of popular brands out there that cannot offer anything like the hotspotting. So let's just go through some of the sales side of it and the applications, how we can use it. Okay, it's as it says, it's very easy on the SIP registration. So if you're using a cloud environment, etc., and you don't want to use multiple SIPs into various areas, you can use the hotspot. So let's work through a couple of these scenarios. Okay, just reiterating how it works. The hotspot works across your customer local network. Okay, basically your LAN environment. It's not going to work across a WAN. You can use it on your X series, 8 series phones as a master, and you can have up to 100 clients depending on the phone. Some of them are only 10, as you can see, only about 3 or 4 of them. And you use the master phone as main registration point. So if we've got a IPv6 or cloud sitting here, we've got extension 200 SIP registration, we've got 201, and then we've got master 202. Now this one would actually be 202_0. Here's our second client. He's actually, or through the 202 masters, registered to the IPv6 cloud. The extension 202_1 is registered to the master. Extension 202_2 is registered to the master. Again, as I said, if you want to ring in between these extensions, I can pick up the master phone and dial digit 2, and it will actually go to the client. Digit 1 will go to that client. You can go up to, depending on the model phone, up to 100. You can dial 99, 98, it'll go to these different phones, etc. Okay. Just so you know, for the for those more a little bit technical inclined, the registration is like a registration. It uses a registration of the existing SIP, but it does the communication across your LAN network via either multicast or broadcast options. Okay, so 2 options on how it does it, but that can be sorted out later. Okay, so now that we have got our master registered and we've got our 2 extensions here, if we have an incoming call, the master will ring, and so will all of the client extensions at the same time. You cannot stop any of them ringing, as in we don't want this client ringing and this one to ring. They will ring all at the same time. Okay, pretty straightforward on that area. So where can we use this? Okay, obvious place are hotels. There's this particular phone that we're talking about here is a Fanvil H5 phone, specifically designed for hotels. It's a solid color screen phone, and through it's got single touch speed dials, etc., for room service, etc., or any speed dials you need. It doesn't have all the buttons that guests, etc., can play with. So we're using this as our master phone, and we've got them sitting here, our master phone sitting here in reception, but I want another phone next to the bed and I want another phone in the bathroom. So I use another H5 next to the bed, and for the wall phone I use an H2 phone, that's going to be in the bathroom. Any calls, if I pick up any of the phones and dial out for whether that be for room service or an outside line, you can do that, and it just presents to the hotel reception, such as room 203 calling, whatever is its designation. But if any calls come in, e.g. reception's ring the room, or we're transferring a call to the room, basically all 3 phones ring at the same time. Now we can use this in hotels, we can use this into healthcare, retirement villages type environments. So quite flexible from that perspective, and in a small room environment this works quite well. 2 or 3 phones, 1 phone is very common in hotels, 2's still pretty common, but you start getting up to larger rooms. An example of this, for example, here again is we've got a hotel. This is a executive suite. It's got your king double room here, your bathroom, you've got the lounge area, got another toilet phone here, and we've got another phone here. So it's basically 4 or 5 phones. Again, this is not unusual in a large hotel or even the larger independent apartments in the healthcare industry. Again, I'm using the H5 and the H2 phone for this example. They're all sitting on 1 SIP registration, and on incoming calls all phones ring at the same time. Okay, moving on. So we've covered off some hospitality, we've covered off a little bit of the environment such as retirement villages, but now let's say I've got a home office. environment, or I might even have a construction site, Portacom environment, etc. So in this particular case, I've got my main office phone sitting here, and I'm using an X6 for this. So it's got 4 DSS, it's got, I might be using Bluetooth or whatever I decide to use here. And then I've got my X3S phone sitting on just the meeting room counter area here, where I'm sitting down talking to people or doing presentations. I've got another phone there. And incoming call rings and away I go. No problems at all. I've got the phones ringing. Now, just because you can do it, let's say I am just working in a home office or a portable office, and of course I need to go for bathroom breaks, etc. Well, I can throw an H2 in there as well if I so wish. I know it's not the perfect world, but it's there as an option. So again, gives you a little bit of an option, an idea, shall we say, of some of the applications you can use. Let's move on. So now what we've got here is a portable office and Intercom. Even an apartment environment we could use this for, but let's say it's secure, the door's shut, etc. What I've got here is the X6 and the X3, but I've also now got an i12, which is a IP-rated external door phone, metal, brushed metal, etc., stainless steel, very robust, hardy, quite popular, very well priced. So now let's say I've got someone coming up to the door and I want to press the button. Now I can actually make the phones ring. It can actually be a client ringing, and those phones can ring on incoming. So moving along. Next thing I can use the hotspot for, now we're going to start talking about general business. This is pretty much any application. I'm going to pick on a warehouse environment here. So I've got a warehouse office here. I've got my X6 phone sitting in there, and I'm picking on the X6 a bit here, but it could be the X7, it could be an X5S, it could be an X3. All can be master phones. Okay, so I've got my office here. I've got my warehouse guy running around here, and but they're not always in their office. So now I've also got the IW20 alerter, and I'm actually going to use this simply as a loud ringer. So again, incoming call comes, the loud ringer also starts ringing. Now, advantage of this is, one of the uniques of the Fanvil is that this is just using a SIP extension, SIP registration, e.g. extension 215. Okay, the IW30 is registered to the master phone, so you don't have to have 2 SIP registrations. You don't have to set up a hunt group to make the 2 devices ring. It simply does. As a matter of fact, if you want to get even smarter, we can now start throwing in the same sort of scenario, except for this time I just want a second phone in the warehouse ringing as well, because I've got a secondary packing desk or something like that. So on incoming calls, now both phones will ring. Okay, so this gives you a scenario of what we can do with this. Okay, so what I've just covered off is pretty much is standard hotspotting on the normal X-Ranger phones. But Fanvil's taken it one extra step, just for a little bit of. Now this is the bit I'm going to talk about now, is basically the X210i. The X210i is the phone with the microphone boom on it. It's designed for paging and paging environments. It's a solid phone. We're shifting a fair whack of them into various solutions now, because again, with the microphone boom, etc., it's offering some serious uniques when out in the market. But what the X210i can do, it can actually do master client relationship registration, just as we've talked about, but it also does one major feature set above it again. It can actually act as a standalone hotspot, whereas all of the X series phones need to have a SIP registration. What it's doing is it's managing the SIP registration onto the clients. I could actually take an X210i and forget registering it to anything at all. I could simply have it as a standalone, and it will register up to 100 clients on it, and you can set up extension numbers within it. Effectively, it could be a standard little mini PABX, but it isn't, and I need to stress that. It's got some serious, well, it's just got a limitation where the clients, you can use, you can register up to 99 clients with designated 3 or 4 digit extension numbering if you so wish, with auto provisioning and everything all ready to go, but none of those clients could ring an outside line. Okay, it's designed for a standalone environment that doesn't justify a IPPBX at all. They don't need it. All they want to do is service internal building equipment. Okay, so it's standalone. You can't basically have, it's like you can imagine it like being a real small entry level PBX, but it hasn't got a lot of the functionality of it. It's simply got registration, answer, ring, transfer, and hold. And it hasn't got any external lines. Okay, so it's not for everybody, but there are applications out there that you can use it for. So let's work through a few of these. Just get an idea of what you can do. First of all, what is it? It's the X210i only. It can be used as a very basic server. Okay, where you can't justify an IPPX. It is a standalone hotspot solution. It is not designed as an IPPBX replacement at all. I need to make that perfectly clear. If you think you're going to go in there and use that for that, you're going to be very disappointed. Okay, so what can it do? It can manage and connect up to 100 clients. The clients must be Fanvil X-Series phones, I-Series security phones, paging, PA2s, H-Series phones, etc., etc. Any of the Fanvil phones, apart from ones we've said can't, it can manage them, and they can be an extension. Clients can ring between each other by dialing their extension number. Okay, but they can only be called internally within that hotspot. An extension can't ring another extension like on the when using a SIP registration. It's locked in. It can't get out at all. Okay. Incoming call options of the external extension are that we can make all extensions ring. So if you do have a external line registered to it, although those extensions cannot make an outgoing call on them, we can allow it that if that call is being told to, e.g. that SIP registration on the X210i, it's got something like 6 or 12 lines of registration on it. Sorry, I'm a little bit, can't remember that right now. But you can have multiple SIP registrations on it. We can tell one of those SIP registrations, if we want, or 3 of them, to ring every phone if you so wish, if you've got an application for it. But you cannot use those lines for an outside. But if I've got a SIP registration that's just ringing for me, e.g. I'm the building manager or something, and I just want to ring in and out, and it's only for the 210i, that's perfect. No problems at all. Hotspot phones only ring on incoming calls on the SIP registration phone, or you can only ring them on the 210i. It's the other limitation is you cannot transfer an external SIP registration to any of the phones. Again, I've got to make this clear that all the clients are ring fenced. You cannot make incoming or transfer calls to them or anything like that. Okay, you can create you can't transfer calls, but you can make ring groups. You can make ring groups within the hotspot. Now again, I'll give you an examples of why you'd have hunt groups or multiple ring groups, as they're called. I've talked about the X210i can be registered in external SIP registration, but they can't make any calls, any outgoing calls. Internal hotspots cannot dial out. We've covered that off. And the X210i can monitor the status of each of its hotspots clients. This is quite an important feature. So as all the hotspots are registered, say I've got 50 of them, quite a few of them, there is within the phone's browser where the client, you as the administrator, can access. It gives all the status about the whether the phones are registered and working, whether they're offline, whether they're what the IP addresses are, everything. So it's just a handy little maintenance tool there. Okay, where we're going to use this puppy. Okay, so we could use it for a building, and the building simply has got, for example, in this case, an I-23. Excuse me. The I-23 we actually use a lot in locked buildings, multi-story apartments, etc., particularly in healthcare, etc. So within each of these rooms we have a phone, and we can dial the phone extension number for whatever apartment it is. For example, on floor 1, apartment 1, we might go 101, star 101, and that'll dial that phone. If it's apartment 2 on the first floor, we go apartment 102, 103. If we want to dial apartment level 4, apartment 1, so 401, so star 401, away it goes. So here's your 210i. It's actually got the I-23 registered to it, and in this case I'm just using the Fanvil H2 phone, wall phones, because it's simply for anybody who wants to walk up, they can dial the extension number or the intercom phone for that particular apartment. They can answer it and say, yeah, can I come in? Sure, no problems at all. Buzz open the door, which is controlled by here. We can actually use prox cards for residents if we so wish, or even PIN numbers for residents if we so wish. Okay, this is using the hotspot on the X210i at its most basic level. Watch the space on this particular solution, because the next thing coming are going to be display panel phones that anything from 7 to 12 inch that is going to appear on phones. I'm letting the cat out of the bag on that one a little bit early, but right now this is what we've got all up and running. Okay, so that should make sense for you. So moving on, we can use a standalone 210X in for example, a standalone car park. Now in this particular case, I might have a car park attendant here. He's got the 210i as his main administration phone here. And he could actually have a registration to the outside world, so he can call his boss and call for assistance if he needs it. But the rest of the phone, the hotspots have been used for all the devices that are sitting in the car park. Now this could range from, we could have an existing old analog paging system, so we could use a PA2 to bridge between the SIP and the analog if we wish. But the PA2 also, one of its other uses is in the arms to let you in and out. You know how you've got the call buttons, etc. That's also what a PA2 will do. It will, it's got microphone cameras and all sorts of things on there. So if someone can't get out, or they can't get in, they can press the call button. That will in turn ring the attendant who's sitting in his office. And if we're using the PA2 with video, a video of the person in the car will display, so the attendant can see who they're dealing with, and they can open up the gates, etc. from that area. The other is we can use the I-12 phones to be used as help points throughout the car park. For example, there might be a payment counter somewhere, you know, those tickets where you put your credit card in and get the card endorsed, and then they can get out of the car park. We can use the I-12, which is the metal IP rated phone, vandal proof, as just simply a help point in a car park or any environment. So I'm thinking about help points because we will be talking about them in the future. Where we can use them as help points, call points, etc. We can have the IW30 PA speakers for paging around the car park, and they can page using the X210i. Okay, and we could also have an optional media server if we so wish for health and safety broadcast. Now this is all without using a IPBX online. This is simply a one phone. It can offer paging, it can offer SIP registration for internal communications, it can offer gate control, it can offer help points, etc., etc. Okay, so as we've gone through, we're using the 210i. This is our server. He's going to make the whole solution work. He can still have a single SIP registration to dial out and receive calls in if he so wishes. It also is going to be for paging individual speakers. We can set those speakers up into zones per floor. We can page all speakers, etc., etc. Okay, we can put them all on soft keys and away we go. Of course, we can also put a media server on there if you so wish. We're going to use the PA2 for barrier control arms, etc. And as I indicated before, you've got your camera, you've got a push button there, you've got speaker there, and microphone, etc. Okay, so that's for your barrier control, and it'll also interface to existing PAs if you so wish. It can receive video calls, etc. from the PA2. Just moving along here, we've got the i12 intercom. Now I've used the i12 as an example here because she's robust. It's probably the entry level. We can have call points wherever we want in a building, but we can actually even make them video as well. We could use the i31 security intercom. Now that's got dial ability, or the i18s actually is probably the best one because it doesn't have a keypad on it. So it's just got a call button on it. They dial that. It dials the X210i and brings up video, etc. So as an assistance point, a call point, or anything like that. You can also have video options running on board there. We've got the paging speakers. We could be running background music through them. We can be paging per zone, per floor, or all page if we so wish. And of course we can have health and safety messages playing through from the media server option, and that'll be anything from don't forget to lock your car, but don't make sure that you don't leave for X amount of hours, make sure that the car is secure, all your valuables are gone, mind the stairs, be careful if it's raining and it's slippery, all that type of thing you can use, and away you go. Okay, that was relatively short and sweet, believe it or not. The hotspot is unique to all the Fanvil phones. It comes standard. There's no licensing needed whatsoever. You can use it for various applications. The imagination is just, don't limit yourself on it. You can use it in an office environment where you might just want two phones in an office running, and the person doesn't want two separate extensions and or the hunt groups or whatever you want. You can use it in buildings. Apartment buildings, hospitals. You can use it in apartments, retirement villages. You can use it in the high-rise building management for allowing people into the secure hotels, the unattended hotels. You can use it for all of those environments. It is not meant to replace an IPPX or a cloud environment solution. It simply won't, because it's simply a simple hosting solution to give up to 100 extensions, internal communications. Okay, any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us here at Everly. Our websites are everly.co.nz or fanvil.co.nz. Any emails, just drop us an email at sales@everly.co.nz. More than happy to help out.